What's up everyone, Check This Tech here, bringing you guys a brand new video. I hope all of you are doing well and staying safe during this pandemic. So in this video, I'm going to be showing you guys how to optimize and save battery on any device running iOS 14. For the most part, a majority of these tips apply to devices with lower iOS versions, so this video should work for pretty much every device. With that being said, let's get straight into the video. So the first tip is going to be to disable iOS's motion effects and parallax. To do this, we start by going to settings, scroll down over here to accessibility, and go over here to motion, and then turn on reduce motion. Now what this does is disables the effects that take place throughout the entire interface on the device. So as you can see right here, I turn this on, and now if I exit settings, you'll notice that the transition effect to the home screen is almost instant. You didn't really see an animation when we went to the home screen, but now if I turn it off, you'll see that now when I swipe out, you see how it kind of closes into the settings app, and now if I click on settings, it kind of zooms back in. If I turn this back on, now you'll see that it kind of just fades away. So not only does this make your device seem to run faster and smoother, but it helps to save battery since the device doesn't have to process every individual animation. Now on to the next tip. The next tip is to turn on dark mode if it isn't already on. Now this tip really only applies to devices with OLED displays like the iPhone X, XS, XS Max, 11 Pro, 11 Pro Max, and any iPhone 12 model. And in this case, I have a iPhone 12 Pro, and I'll explain why right after. Now if you're watching this video, chances are you have a device with iOS 13 or 14, so you will have the option for dark mode, but anything lower than that iOS version, you're not going to have the option. So to do this, we're going to go ahead and head over to settings, then display and brightness, and now you're going to see light and dark. So I'm already on dark mode as you can see, but if I go ahead and turn on light, you're going to see that my whole display turns white, obviously. But if I go ahead and click dark, you're going to see that there's areas that are gray and black. These areas that are gray, the pixels are on, but the areas right here that are black, the pixels are actually off. Now, I mentioned earlier that as far as saving battery life, this only applies to devices with OLED displays, and the reason is because the OLED displays have the ability to turn off pixels on areas that are black. And that allows you to get really deep blacks when viewing any content. So in this case, in this part of the settings, these pixels are actually off, and this area obviously is black. So this saves battery because the display isn't actually on in these areas as compared to when you're using light. When you're using the light version, all the pixels on the device are on. Head over to dark, all the areas that are black, the pixels are actually off, and the device is only displaying content in the areas that aren't black. So if that was a little bit confusing for you, all you really got to understand is that turning on dark mode will definitely help your device save battery. Now on to the next tip. So the next tip is in display and brightness as well, and the tip is to turn off True Tone if you have it on. Now you can see right here, it says it automatically adapts the iPhone's display based on ambient light conditions. Now as right here at the top of your display, you have sensors built in the device that constantly detect the conditions of your environment whenever the display is on. Now you can clearly see how this kills your battery because no matter where you go, it is constantly detecting the conditions just so it can adjust the display for your experience. Now for some people, they may not want to turn this off because it does make your device look a bit different. As you can see, if I go ahead and turn this on, you might not see a noticeable difference on camera, but based on my conditions, it did turn the display a little bit orange as if it put on a blue light filter. Some people like this, some people don't, but if you go ahead and turn this off, you're definitely going to save battery. Now on to the next tip. Now the next tip is also on display and brightness, and that is to turn off Raise to Wake if it isn't already off. Just like True Tone, there are sensors in your device constantly detecting every time you pick up your device, and in my opinion, Raise to Wake is definitely worse than True Tone because True Tone is only activated when your display is on so it can detect the conditions, rather than Raise to Wake is always on when your phone is off and your display is off. So every time your phone is off sitting somewhere and you pick it up, it is going to detect that every single time and your phone is going to turn on. So even when your phone is idle, it's going to constantly detect it, and that is going to cause idle battery drain, and that's why you're going to want to turn that off. So go ahead and turn Raise to Wake off. So the next tip is to disable motion in the music app. So if you head over to settings, scroll down and find music, it's going to be right here. Click that, you're going to see motion. It's probably on Wi-Fi only or on. You're going to want to go ahead and turn that to off. Now if you use the music app, you'll notice that some music will have animated cover art. And this isn't necessarily graphic intensive, but it definitely puts more strain on your GPU compared to if you have it off. So if you want to save as much battery as possible and you don't care about animated cover art, go ahead and turn that to off, and you're going to save some battery. Now on to the next tip. Now the next tip is to turn off Hey Siri. So if we go over here in settings, scroll a little bit down to Siri and search, and the first option you're going to see listen for Hey Siri. You're going to want to go ahead and turn that off. Unless you use it, of course, then this doesn't apply to you. But if you have this on and you do not use Hey Siri, turn it off. And I say that because this operates almost similarly to Raise to Wake and True Tone, because Raise to Wake uses sensors just like True Tone, except in this case, Hey Siri constantly uses your microphone. So even when your phone is just sitting there idle, it is constantly using the microphone to listen for you to say Hey Siri. Now obviously if you have this on and you don't use it, go ahead and turn that off, because in my opinion, Hey Siri is one of the biggest battery drainers on iOS, so go ahead and turn that off. On to the next tip. Now the next tip is to disable background app refresh for applications that do not need to refresh. So if we go over here to general, you're going to see background app refresh. Now I do not mean to turn off background app refresh here at the top. You're going to see here, it's going to say off. You do not want to do that. What you're going to want to do is go through each individual application you have on your device and choose what apps you want to refresh constantly in the background. Now if you don't know what apps you want to refresh in the background, I'm going to go ahead and give you an example so you know what apps you should and shouldn't turn off. So in my case, I have Amazon. Right now it's turned off for video purposes, but I'm going to explain to you what happens if it's off. So if you use Amazon, you'll know that if you order something, it'll tell you how far the driver is from your location, and it'll tell you when your package is delivered. If I have background app refresh off, let's say I clear the Amazon app, my phone is sitting off, the screen's off, and I'm just sitting there, and it is not going to tell me instantly when my package is delivered. So if I go ahead and turn this off, now the application is constantly refreshing in the background. So if it fetches new data and it tells me that my package is delivered, I'm going to get that notification instantly. So an application like that, you want that constantly refreshing. An application like Google Drive, for example, maybe you don't want that refreshing constantly in the background. In my case, I do not need that in the background constantly refreshing. So that's just a prime example of applications you should and shouldn't disable. In my case, Amazon, I need that constantly on. So just go ahead and go through all the applications on your device and you can decide for yourself what you should and shouldn't turn off. Now, if you don't know what you're doing and you do not want to accidentally turn something off, I advise that you do not mess with it at all. Because if you need to receive an important notification for a specific application, then I would just leave everything as is and don't mess with it unless you really know what you're doing. On to the next tip. So the next tip is to turn off advertising and analytics. So if you go ahead and scroll down a little bit in settings, you're going to see privacy. Scroll all the way down in privacy, and now you're going to see analytics and improvements and Apple advertising. Go ahead and click this one. Now you're going to see share iPhone analytics, improve Siri and dictation, and share iCloud analytics. So all three of these settings has nothing to do with anything on your device that will help you personally. All of this has to do with sending Apple data from your phone. So let's say improve Siri and dictation. It says help improve Siri and dictation by allowing Apple to store and review audio of your Siri and dictation interactions. Now, if you ask me, that is a little bit of an invasion of your privacy if you think about it, because every time you use Siri, it's going to be sending that data to Apple. Same thing with iPhone analytics. It's going to be sending daily diagnostic and usage data. And iCloud analytics, same thing, falls into the same category. Now this drains battery because no matter if your phone's plugged in on a charger or you're in the car driving, some way, somehow, somewhere, no matter what time, in the background, your phone is going to send this data to Apple and it is going to drain battery one way or another. Now if we go ahead and back out, we're going to see Apple advertising. Now it's one option, personalized ads. You're going to want to go ahead and turn that off as well. Not only does this improve your usability experience, but this falls into the same category as analytics because your phone is constantly trying to find personalized ads to display on your device through Apple, and you're not going to want to have that on because it drains battery. Simple as that. On to the next tip. So the next tip is actually in the same area as the last tip. You're going to go ahead, scroll down, privacy, all the way down over here, motion and fitness. Now, if you use any fitness apps that count your steps or use some type of sensor data to calculate something or store some type of data, obviously you're going to want to leave that on if you use anything fitness related. But if you don't use anything fitness related, go ahead and turn that off, because this actually uses the sensors on your device and uses all that data to go into certain apps, and if you don't use it, turn it off. It's going to help you save battery. Now the next tip is to turn off significant locations. To do that, we're going to scroll down, head over to privacy, click on location services, scroll all the way down, click on system services, and then over here you're going to see significant locations. You're going to want to turn that off. Now what this does is your phone constantly uses its GPS to see where your device has been. Obviously you're usually always with your device, so where you have been, it's going to detect that. It's going to tell you how many times you've been to that certain place and when you actually visited that place. And if you ask me, that is kind of an invasion of your privacy, and it is also a big battery drain, so you're going to want to go ahead and turn that off. Now on to the next tip. Now the next tip is also in the same area as significant locations. It's right under product improvement, and that is iPhone analytics. And we talked about iPhone analytics before, so you're just going to want to go ahead and turn that off. And the next thing you're going to see is popular near me. Now you might have noticed that sometimes your device pops up with suggestions of places you might want to go, maybe on the internet, or it'll give you an idea of places that are obviously near you that are popular, just like it says right here. So if you don't have any use for that or any need for that on your device, go ahead and turn that off. And then obviously turn off iPhone analytics, as we discussed that before. Now on to the next tip. Now the next tip may seem pretty simple, but you'd be surprised how many people actually leave this on, and that is AirDrop. So if we go over to the control center, hold down right over here, you're going to see AirDrop. You want to go ahead and click that and make sure that's off if you do not use AirDrop. Now, when you have it on everyone or contacts only, the AirDrop service is always running in the background, and you do not need it in the background running because it's going to kill your battery life. So if you don't use AirDrop, go ahead and turn that off. Now on to the next tip. So the last tip is going to be to use the least amount of widgets as possible. I'm not going to tell you guys to disable all your widgets, considering Apple finally added widgets to iOS after all these years, even though Android pretty much had them since day one. So I'm not going to tell you to disable them, but I will just advise you to use the least amount as possible. As you can see here, I have the batteries widget. This isn't so much of a battery drain because all it's doing is displaying the current percentage of my battery. But if you have widgets like the weather app that is constantly refreshing data, that is going to have to constantly refresh data every time you open your device, and it's going to have to display it, even though it might not be as accurate as to when you open the application, but it is still fetching data as compared to a widget like this. So I'm just going to tell you guys, just use the least amount of widgets as possible, and if you don't need to use a widget, just delete it. Well, that pretty much sums up the video for today. If you found any of these tips useful, I'd really appreciate it if you left a like and subscribe to my channel. And if you have any questions or concerns, you can leave that in the comment section and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Also, if you know any other tips and tricks that I may not know about, please leave that in the comment section as well for other people to see, and maybe you can help them out. But other than that, peace out.